Okay, good afternoon. So for this lecture video, we will discuss about cost minimization. So, tapos na tayo sa pag-discuss ng relationship between factor inputs and outputs. So, na-discuss natin yung mga different types of inputs, fixed input, variable input. Na-discuss natin yung about sa short run and then long run. Kapag in the short run, some of the inputs are fixed and some are variable, but in the long run all inputs are already variable. And we also discuss, or in the last video I illustrate how output changes as the amount of variable input is changed. And then pinag-assignment ko kayo, pinag-graph ko sa inyo yung na-solve na output, and then yung marginal product natin and average product, and then you were able to determine the rational stage in the production process using one variable input. Now, I will show you or illustrate to you the cost minimization problems or producer equilibrium in terms of the use of input and yung cost natin. Okay? Pero, actually, mas na kayo dito kasi parang lang din siya dun sa consumer equilibrium natin. Kaso dun sa consumer equilibrium kasi we are talking about the budget and the demand of the consumer. Now, we will look at on how producer allocate their inputs and their budget in order to minimize their cost. Okay? So, we have the first term here, isoquant. So, ano nga ba yung isoquant na sinasabi natin? Okay, so isoquant is the locus of points, each point representing a combination of two inputs. So, let's say na we have L and K, or L stands for labor, and then yung K natin is capital. Okay? Then, which yield the same level of output for producer. So, if you can remember sa natin, dun sa consumption natin, di ba, we have two goods. And then, yung natin, consumer natin can have different combination of those two goods. Here, yung isoquant naman, yung two different levels of inputs that the producer can use to yield the same level of output. Okay, so isoquant map is a set of isoquants indicating increasing output levels as one moves in northeast direction on a KL plane. So, I will now show you yung itsura ng isoquant. Okay, so, lang. So, ano nga ba ang itsura ng isoquant? So, we have an KL plane. Okay. So, example, yung K natin nandito siya sa y-axis, and then yung L or labor natin nasa x-axis. Okay? And yung isoquant natin is ganito. Para din siyang indifference curve. So, isoquant, it is a locus of points. So, any point here represents different combination of K and L. Pero kapag yung point natin lies within the same isoquant, then it means same level of output is being produced. Kapag yung isoquant map naman natin, so set of isoquants. So we have still K and L, and then we have here, lang hirap mag-drawing. Okay, so we have, for example, yung isoquant natin na una, and then, so ito yung isoquant map. Okay, set of isoquants. Meron tayong set of isoquants na sabi, habang nag-i-increase siya or nag-move siya in northeast direction, mas tumataas yung output being produced. So, ibig sabihin, as we go from isob-NAT, isob-1, tumataas yung output being produced. Okay? Kasi mas madami yung input na available for each combination. Like for example, etong line na to. So we have same level of K, pero yung L natin, dumadami kasi siya. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, mas madami din yung output na reproduce natin. Okay? So, let's take a look at the characteristics of the isoquants. Okay, so an IQ or isoquant, which lies above and to the right of another, represents preferred combination of inputs. So, for example, I1, ito, lang. I1 is preferred time I sub-NAT. Kasi it is at the right or higher than yung I sub-NAT natin. And then I2 is more preferred than I1. So habang tumataas, mas preferred yung combination of inputs. And then second, IQs are negatively sloped. Bakit negatively sloped? So bababa siya because of substitutability of resources except for fixed proportion. So here we really need to give up some portion of L in order to use more of L. Okay, kaya siya negatively sloped. So we need to give up K in order to use more L. Next, IQs never intersect because if they do, this means that one combination of inputs will yield to different maximum output, or that it is possible to increase Q without increasing K or increasing L. So, hindi sila nag-i-intersect. Okay? Never sila nag-i-intersect. And then, IQs are convex to the origin. So, kung makikita nyo, convex siya sa origin, which implies that inputs are not perfect substitutes for all ranges of combinations. Okay, so mamaya, makikita natin dun sa diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution, yung kailangan natin mabawas in order to add additional unit of the other input. Okay? So, ito na. Diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution. Okay. Wait lang. So, it refers to the maximum amount of K that a producer or K or capital that a producer can technically give up in order to use an additional unit of L while maintaining the same level of output. Okay? So, negatively slope siya. So, let's see. Gagawa ulit ako ng graph. I-minimize natin to so that you can see. Okay, so gawa lang ulit ako ng new graph kasi we need to answer this question. Sabi, if at point A, what is the combination of L and K used? And if a producer decides to use an additional unit of L, for example, movement to point B, how many units of K must he or she must give up? Okay, so for example, we have here our K and L, and then we have here, for example, okay, so we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 2, 4, 6, and 8. Okay? And then we have point A, and then point B, and point C. Okay. So let us now see kung gaano kadami yung um, kailangan nating ibawas dun sa K natin if we add additional L. But first, yung question na una is at point A, what is the combination of L and K used? So we have here point A. So we have, wait lang. Okay, so at point A, we have 4 na K and we have 1 na L. Okay? So, point A, K we have 4 and 1. 4 na K and then 1 na L. At point B, so before we answer yung ilan yung i-give up, let's see muna. So, at point B, K, we have 2K and then 2L. And point C, we have, so kung nandyan siya, so ano na lang natin, since nahirapan ako sa pag-straight line, 1 na K and then 3 na L. Okay, so we have different combinations of L and K from point A to point C, but it yields the same level of output. Okay, so the next question is, if a producer decides to use an additional unit of L, in effect movement to point B, so from point A, may move siya to point B, how many units of K must he or she give up? Okay, kasi nga sabi natin kanina, kailangan natin mag-give up ng one input in order to add additional unit of the other input. So, gagawin natin yon is, ay, lang, saan yan? Okay, so from A to B, i-compute natin ngayon yung marginal rate of technical substitution wherein change in K over change in L represents the MRTS. So, alam natin na yung change natin is, di ba ilang beses na tayo nagkaroon ng formula na ganito, yung change. So, present K minus previous K over present L minus previous L. Okay? So, tignan natin. Sabi dito, from point A to point B. So, MRTS now. MRTS LK is change in K over change in L. Okay, so we have here, ano yung present K natin? So we have here 2 minus yung from point A 4 over, so yung L natin is 2 minus dito 1. So we have here negative 2 over 1, and it will give us negative 2. Okay, so we just solve for the change in K over change in L based on our existing points, point A, point B. So from point A to point B. So point B yung current natin, point A yung previous. Okay, so paano natin i-interpret ngayon yung negative 2? Okay, so negative 2 means that we need to give up 2 units of K if we want to use additional 1 unit of L. Okay, again, we need to give up 2 units of K if we want to use an additional 1 unit of L. Okay, so yan yung interpretation natin. So, negative siya. It reflects na kailangan natin mag-give up na in order to add an additional unit of the other input. So, next question is, ano naman yung MRTS from point P to point C? Okay, so, burahin ko to. Okay, so, okay. So, dito naman, ang current natin ngayon is point C and yung previous natin is point P. Okay, so change in K. So, ang current natin is 1 minus yung previous natin is 2 over change in L. So, we have here 3 minus 2. So, we have negative 1 over 1 which will give us negative 1. Okay, so do we have a diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution as we move from point A to point C? So kung kanina, iba yung MRTS natin, from point A to point P is negative 2. Now we have negative 1. So the answer for the second question is yes. Okay, bakit? The explanation, because the amount of K to be given up becomes scarcer and scarcer as we increase the use of labor. Diba kung makikita nyo dito, palapit na siya ng palapit sa 0. So habang nag-i-increase tayo dito ng L natin, paunti ng paunti yung kailangan nating i-give up doon sa K natin. Kasi scarcer, it becomes scarcer and scarcer. So, hindi naman siya pwedeng mag-0. Kasi nga, we are talking about combination of inputs. Okay? So, that's the diminishing marginal rate of technical substitution. Now, let's take a look at the constraints of the firm. So, we have here isocost line. So, yung isocost line naman natin, yun yung counterpart ni budget line. Okay, so it is a locus of points, each point representing a combination of inputs that a firm can purchase at the same cost. Okay, so cost na yung pinag-uusapan natin dito. So the cost equation, which relates the level of possible input usage for any given cost outlay, which can be written as, so C are yung cost outlay, K is equal to RT plus WL, where K is the capital, L is the labor, and then yung R natin is the rent, and W is the wage. So rent is related to capital, and then wage is related to labor. Okay. So before we answer this, we gagraph ko lang yung itsura ni isocost line natin. Okay, so we have here okay, so again we have here K and L. Okay, so diba okay, so may example na ba tayo dito? Okay, so the maximum amount of K that a firm can buy if all cost outlay is spent on K. So parang yung maximum amount din to ng good na mabibili mo if you spend all your budget in good X, for example. So in this case, yung maximum amount of K that a firm can buy if all cost outlay is spent on K can be solved by dividing yung C by rent. Okay? So, ito siya. Yung maximum. So, if 0, yung L, ito yung K natin. And then, the maximum amount of L that a firm can buy if all cost outlay spent on L, it can be solved naman by simply dividing C by yung wage natin. So, dito siya. Okay? And then, pwede na natin i-draw ngayon yung isocost line natin. So, isocost line. So, the slope of the isocost is equal to negative W over R. Ito yung slope ngayon. So, it can be reflected in the graph na negative siya. Okay? So, what does the slope imply? So, it implies the rate of change in the amount of K that must be given up to use an additional unit of L. Okay? The rate of change in the amount of K that must be given up to use an additional unit of L. So, let's take this, ito na yung graphical presentation niya. Now, let's take this numerical example. Okay? So, numerical example natin. Okay, so we have here for example, yung C natin or capital natin is equal to 200, yung wage natin is equal to 5, and yung rent natin is equal to 10. So, yung first is we need to find the cost equation. Okay? So, yung cost equation natin ngayon can be represented as, so, yung capital is equal to, ano yung rate natin? 10K. Diba, if you can remember, C equals RK plus WL kanina. Since we have now the value of R equal to 10, then we can write 10K plus yung wage natin, which is 5, then L. 5L. Okay, so ito ngayon yung cost equation natin. So, what is the maximum? Maximum K. So, di ba sabi natin kanina, ito yung formula natin. So, we have C over R. So, we now compute. So, we have C equals 200. So, 200 divided by R equals 10. So, 200 divided by 10 is 20. So, dito natin 20 siya. And then, yung max, max L natin is C over W. So, again, yung C natin is 200 divided by W natin is 5. So, 200 divided by 5 is 40. So, we have here 40. Okay? So, what is the slope? So, sabi natin kanina, the slope is negative W over R. So, the slope is simply negative. Yung W natin is equal to 5 over R, which is 10. So, negative 5 over 10 or negative 0.5. So, what is the interpretation of this slope? So, the interpretation is we need to give up 0.5 units of capital in order to use an additional 1 unit of labor. Okay, so that's the interpretation. Okay, so we need to give up 0.5 units of capital in order to use additional 1 unit of labor. Okay. Now let's take a look at the shifts or rotation of isocost line. So we have parallel shift, which can be observed if there is a change in cost outlay with input prices remains the same. Okay? And then, yung rotation naman natin is changes in either W or R with cost outlay and one of the other prices remaining the same. Okay, so let's take an example. So, mag-ano ka ng bago na graph para mas makita natin. Okay, so, okay, so we have K and L. Nakikita. Okay. So, for example, we have here 20, 40, 60, 80. And we have here 10, 20, 30, and 40. And yung original natin is C equals 200, W equals, ano nga yung W natin? 5, and yung R natin is 10. So, in this case, yung max K natin is 20, yung max L natin is 40. Okay? So, ito siya. Ayaw na naman niya. Okay, so yan yung original isocost line natin. So, maximum of 20K and maximum of 40L. Now, let's take an example. May parallel shift daw siya. So, therefore, yung original cost natin, which is 200. So, from 200, naging, for example, naging 400 siya. Okay? So, sabi dito, changes in cost outlay with input prices remaining the same. So, we just change yung cost natin. So, therefore, yung max K natin will change since 400 na yung new capital outlay natin. So, 400 divided by yung original pa rin na rent natin, 10. So, we have 40. Yung maximum L naman natin ngayon, 400 divided by 5. Ito pa rin siya, hindi nagbago. So, it will give us 80. Okay, so, mangyayari ngayon, ito na yung isocost line. Okay, so from here, naging dito siya. What about if there is a rotation? So, rotation daw due to changes in either W or R. So, for example, there is a change in, so same lang yung C natin, which is 200. And then yung R natin, for example, from 10 to 20. Okay? So, from 10 to 20, so, syempre, yung max L natin will remain to be 40 kasi hindi naman na apektuhan yung W natin. Yung max K yung babago. So, from 200 divided by 20, it will give us 10. So, eto na ngayon yung new. So, nag-rotate siya. Same lang yung L natin, pero yung K natin bumaba siya from 20 to 10. How about if yung wage naman yung nagbago? So, we have wage equals 5 to wage equals 10, for example. So, same C is 200 and ang magbabago na lang ngayon is yung max L natin because yung max K natin will remain to be 20. Okay? So, max L now will be equal to 200. Hindi makita yung yellow. So, 200 divided by 10, it will give us 20. Okay? So, eto naman siya ngayon. Nag-rotate. Okay. So, yan yung parallel shift and rotation of the isocost line given the changes in either cost with input prices remaining the same or changes in either W or R with cost outlay and one of the other prices remaining the same. Okay. So, paano ngayon yung cost minimization? So, a rational firm would want to minimize the cost of producing a given output level, and this can be done by choosing that combination of inputs for which the marginal rate of technical substitution of L and K is equal to the wage and rental ratio. So, yung cost minimization natin can be represented by a graph. So, ganito siya. So, K and L. So, we have here yung isocost line natin. And then, we have our isoquant. Okay. So, ito ngayon yung cost minimization point natin kung saan tangent si isocost line and isoquant. So, yun yung rational na are advisable na kung saan magproduce yung producer natin given yung capital outlay niya and different combination of input. Okay, so that's all for this lecture video. Please prepare again for an online quiz on Wednesday. Thank you.